Welcome to the Animal Training Academy podcast show. I'm your host, Ryan Carledge, and I'm passionate about helping you master your animal training skills using the most positive and least intrusive approaches. Here at ATA, we understand that navigating the vast challenges you encounter in training requires a comprehensive base of knowledge and experience. It's common to face obstacles and rough patches on your journey that can leave you feeling overwhelmed and stressed. Therefore, since 2015, we've been on a mission to empower animal training geeks worldwide. We've aided thousands in developing their skills, expanding their knowledge, boosting their confidence, and maximizing their positive impact on all the animal and human learners they work with. We are excited to do the same for you. Simply visit www.atamember.com, join our vibrant community, and geek out with us. And of course, in the meantime, enjoy this free podcast episode as we explore new ways to help you supercharge your training skills, grow your knowledge, and build your confidence, so that you can craft a life that positively impacts every learner you encounter. But we will start today's episode where I'm thrilled to talk to one Debbie Martin. Debbie is a licensed veterinary technician in Texas and one of only 30 veterinary technician specialists in behavior. She's also a Karen Pryor Academy certified training partner and faculty emeritus. Debbie has been a full-time registered and licensed veterinary technician since 1996 and spent 14 years in private practice. Since 2005, she's been the animal behavior technician for Veterinary Behavior Consultants LLC. She owns Team Education in Animal Behavior and Debbie Martin Animal Behavior and Coaching. Additionally, Debbie is a contributing author and co-editor of the textbook Canine and Feline Behavior for Veterinary Technicians and Nurses, 2nd edition. Alongside Dr. Martin, she co-authored Puppies Start Right Foundation Training for the Companion Dog. She also has extensive experience in both general practice and behavior specialty, fuels her passion for a team approach to behavior, preventative behavior medicine, and the Fear-Free initiative. She is honoured to be a subject matter expert for Fear-Free and Fear-Free Happy Homes. So without further ado, it's my very great pleasure to welcome Debbie to the show today, who's patiently waiting by. Debbie, thank you so much for taking the time to come and hang out with us at Animal Training Academy.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm excited to be here. What a great opportunity to sit and chat with you for a period of time.
So thrilled to have you here. I've been wanting to do this for years, so pumped we're finally making it happen. Let's dive straight in today, Debbie. I can't wait to learn about your behavior odyssey. I was hoping you could take us, the listeners of this show, back to where you first learned about animal training, about positive reinforcement, and share some stories with us from your journey.
Yeah. Well, it started with a dog. I think that often is where a lot of people start. I'm going to back up just a little bit further from that, actually. Before I became a veterinary technician, I actually used to be a preschool teacher. So when I went to college, I learned a lot about development and how children, there's different developmental stages and how they acquire different skill sets at different times, and that there's kind of these onsets and offsets for them, and the importance of different exposures. And I think that's probably why once I did get into veterinary medicine, I naturally gravitated towards behavior because of my strong interest coming as a preschool teacher before that. But then, so 1991, graduated from college and was a preschool teacher, and I got my first dog as an adult. So I had grown up with dogs throughout my life, but I went to the shelter and I found this 10-week-old shepherd mix. And when I took him into the adoption room, he hid in the corner, and I thought that was really cute because I knew nothing about behavior. But Snickers ended up living with me for almost 15 years, and he taught me a lot about animals and dogs and training and all those things. In fact, when Snickers was a little puppy, so end of 1992, early 1993, our veterinary hospital that I was taking him to was offering puppy classes. And so I enrolled him in a puppy class right away, which was really good because he had some fear of things already. And he loved going to that vet hospital, even though he got neutered there and he went for vaccinations and was kind of a little bit frightened about some of the things that they were doing with him. He would, when we would get there in the parking lot, he'd be pulling me in to get to the lobby because of those early foundation memories he had had as a puppy. In fact, when I moved across town, I drove 30 minutes to go see that veterinary hospital because Snickers liked going there. So that planted a seed in my brain once I got into general practice about what a profound impact we can have with young puppies, having good experiences in the veterinary hospital to kind of establish this feel-good feeling is all I could think about. Snickers liked going there, so I liked going there, and that's where we were going to go. And so that's kind of where I started. Like, I was a preschool teacher, had a dog that had some issues, and had some experience with going to a puppy class with him. I will also say, like, after puppy class, they had recommended going on to obedience classes with him. And I knew nothing about training at this point. I was just a baby learning about this. And I remember asking, like, what kind of collars do you use? I don't know why I asked this, but they said, well, we use a choke chain. And I thought, that doesn't feel like something I feel comfortable doing, And so I decided not to enroll him. I just, trained him on a flat collar and harness, and we learned how to walk together and that kind of stuff. It wasn't until he was like 6 years old that I enrolled him in a clicker training class that was happening locally. We had a trainer that was marketing at our vet hospital, and I enrolled in a class with her to learn, what is this clicker training thing? And I was hooked at that point. Snickers loved it, of course. And she enjoyed seeing Snickers' adventures and asked me to come on as a trainer with the company. So I was working in a vet hospital at that point. I had graduated from tech school and was working in general practice.
And so you got Snickers in 1992, did you say?
Yes. Yeah. End of 1992. I think it was around Thanksgiving. So it was in November of 1992, which is an awesome time. I lived in Ohio, so it's cold weather. It's a great time to train a puppy to go outside to go potty, like when it's snowy and awful out. But yeah, I usually recommend it to people, get puppies in the spring or summer when you live in a place that's very cold during the winter, because the house training part was not very much fun, especially for the first time pet owner. Although Snickers was fantastic. Like, I think he maybe had 2 accidents in the house ever, but he was closer. Well, he was really good. Maybe I was really on top of it too. I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you had a intuition about things based on just hearing that choke chains were used. Because as you say that, I think about the general populace and the prevalence of choke chains, and a assumption, which I have no data on, that people don't have that natural intuition to not use choke chains.
Yeah, I have found that just in my career too. A lot of owners, very smart people, have been told to do things that they felt kind of uncomfortable with, but here was an authority figure suggesting it, and they were paying them money, so they would try it, even though maybe it didn't feel right. So certainly, I guess, maybe if I had jumped in and not asked any questions and then been in the situation, I might have tried it. But it just didn't feel right for Snickers, just knowing his sensitivities at that point. And I'm glad I didn't. So, because I don't think Snickers would have done well with that. He ended up being a fantastic dog that did really well with a lot of people. I was concerned with him about fear of people, and he did, as he got older, develop some sound sensitivities as well as some separation anxiety, which are often diagnosed together. And in older dogs, we actually have data on that. to suggest that there's probably an orthopedic component to it. And I don't know that we had recognized that in him, whether he had an orthopedic component or not. There was also a change in the household. His a dog that he had lived with for a long time, a golden retriever that kind of brought stability to the household, had passed away suddenly. And then these things started to develop as well. So it's hard to know if it was there and just under the threshold of reactivity because she was his emotional support dog for him, or not. Yeah.
It's hard to bring those things up in a safe way sometimes, because if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, I went to the choke chain collar, we don't mean to make anyone feel judged, because we've got a lot of compassion for people. As a busy parent, Debbie, I've got a lot of compassion for people. You want to find a subject matter expert, and you want to be like, man, I want to entrust the decision-making process to you, because my brain is like on overload. So
right.
I totally understand at the same time people's seeking out someone to help with their problems and not having the skills to make an educated guess about or educated decision about who they are to help, even if you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That True. Gift of like.
And also the methods, they do work, right? Like you do see a change in behavior, and unless you're aware of emotional components, or even if you are, like sometimes that trumps the decision. Like it feels like this is the only way that we can train them. And I actually have found that because I'm not a crossover trainer, that I have a little bit of a disadvantage, because I'm not able to say, hey, I used to do it this way, but now like I've decided that this is a better way for me to train. So, I would say I was not the best positive reinforcement trainer, in that some of my learners early on, probably there were aversives in there, not on purpose, but just because of my skill set, or, at the time using more negative punishment and those types of things. But I have evolved since then. But certainly, I think that that's really important. We're not alienating different methodologies, because regardless of how you train, you love animals. And the reason that you do what you do, especially if you're a professional trainer, is because you want to help, and there is a connection, whether it's your own dog or a client's dog. There's a human-animal relationship and human-animal bond there. And people who train in different ways than I do, that maybe I wouldn't feel comfortable with, still love animals, and I have compassion for them. So, and you can learn something from everyone. I've been in a lot of different training scenarios. For years, I had Belgian Malinois and did some bite work with them. And that did involve being in workshops where techniques were used that I would not use with my own dogs, but I could see it skillfully being used by other trainers. And for the most part, some of those dogs looked really happy and didn't show emotional fallout from some of the techniques that were being used with a skilled trainer using those techniques. Not that I'm advocating for them, but I still, like the workshops, I learned a lot of great things from these trainers that I might not have gotten in another context.
Which is beautiful. And I love the ability to leave emotions at the door and step in front of a human learner and be open to a conversation and learning and listening. That's awesome. And I also feel there's a lot of value in what you've shared. That you have some, what's the right word? Envy. I don't know if envy is the right word. You correct me. Of not being a crossover trainer, because there is something that you don't have, and that is the skill and experience that you can only get from having been down that road. So not saying that people should go out and go down that route, but if you've already done it, you have this kind of advantage in a way.
Yeah. And you have the advantage of talking to people who are thinking about changing maybe, or eliminating some of the aversives that they've added into their training program. So having a conversation with someone that has been in that same situation is easier than someone who has not. because I can't always have their full perspective. I try, I don't believe that you have to experience everything to understand how that might impact things, like you don't actually have to practice it to understand the negatives associated with it. But if you have, it gives you a little bit different insight that is a life lesson learned, right?
Yeah, and I think that this can be really powerful for those people, what you're saying. I did some study in marketing recently, and they said that if you want to be a good guide for someone, a good coach, then having empathy and really understanding the situation that someone's in and what it feels like to be that is going to make you a good guide. It's going to make you a good coach. And you should look for that when you're looking for coaches and guides. So I think that's really powerful what you just shared there. So 1992, we get Snickers.
Yeah.
Pulling us
We
back.
get Snickers. Yeah.
You get Snickers. And you make this decision sometime around then to switch from preschool to veterinary technician.
So I went to tech school. I think I started in 1994. Yes. And I graduated in 1996. But I was working I did do some volunteer work at a veterinary hospital before I went back to tech school. And while I was in tech school, I was doing work at a veterinary hospital as well and getting experience there. And then, got into clicker training with my dog in 1998-ish. And I started teaching puppy classes at the practice where I was a head tech. I was the lead technician on the floor, and one of the technicians was going on maternity leave, and she had been teaching puppy classes, and she asked, would I be interested in taking them over? And I was like, yeah, that sounds interesting. It sounds right up my alley. And I fell into that and wanted to find out more. Like, I just felt like I didn't have enough knowledge or information. So I did a continuing education course at Purdue University. It was a 2 or 3 day course just on teaching puppy socialization classes. And it was put on by Dr. Andrew Lucier and Julie Shaw. And that's when I met Julie. And Julie and I are very good friends. We are also the co-editors of the Canine and Feline Behavior for Veterinary Technicians and Nurses textbook. And it at that point, I was like, I want to go to Purdue University. And they were talking about having a internship for a technician in animal behavior. Now, it never came to fruition, but I thought, here I lived in Ohio, which is, so it's about 4 hours from Purdue. And so I moved and got a job at the university in the in the vet school. I was actually a cardiology technician, but I hung out in the behavior department quite a bit to learn more about behavior because that's where my passion was. And so I went from, doing preventive things, like basic training and puppy classes to more intervention when you haven't been able to prevent, because not everything is preventable. You haven't been able to prevent some conditions, like what do you do now, And so that's where I kind of got my education at Purdue, and then working with veterinary behavior consultations for, 19 years as the behavior technician, and seeing clinical cases that were referred by regular vets to the veterinary behaviorist, Dr. Kenneth Martin, and seeing those cases together for 19 years. I've seen a lot and worked with a lot of clients, a lot of dogs, a lot of cats on specific behavior conditions that they have had challenges with. So I've helped coach them through that. And in the middle of all that, so I did the Karen Pryor Academy Certified Training Program. And then I became faculty for that program and taught for 6 years. So I would go around the country on my weekends and teach students. I loved that. Like, it was really fun working one-on-one with the students and spending weekends just kind of geeking out on training and watching the animals in front of us and hypothesizing about like what's happening, why are we seeing XYZ behavior when we thought we were going to see this behavior? So breaking it down and really kind of identifying the challenges with each individual animal or problem solving and not really challenges. It was just like when things go wrong, and then how do you figure out like, oh, well, they're attending to this and I'm attending to that. And so just being aware of those things. So that was a lot of fun. And about, I guess it was in about 2007, 2009, I started doing some public speaking at some of the veterinary conferences on animal behavior. And then in 2011, I was asked to come on to Clicker Expo faculty. That's also the same time they picked up the book Puppy Start Right, Foundation Training for the Companion Dog. And in a year later, in 2012, we launched the Puppy Start Right for Instructors course through Karen Pryor Academy as well. So yeah, it just, lots of public speaking at that point, because once you have a book, you get more attention, I think. And then also specialty in behavior happened in 2010. I sat for the first exam to become a veterinary technician specialist in behavior, and is a new specialty for technicians. Although I will say with the Fear-Free initiative, a lot of technicians in general practice are getting the behavior bug. And I think that we are going to see a large uptick in the next 10 years or so of technicians wanting to specialize in animal behavior because it's becoming more accessible to them. Yeah. And also during that time, wrote chapters in textbooks, wrote a textbook and edited it, and got involved with Fear-Free in 2015 before it actually launched. I was asked to come on board and help develop the first course that they were going to be putting out, and worked closely with a large group of people at Fear-Free and specialists in the field. And then came on as subject matter expert for Fear-Free in 2016 once it launched and we had certification. So, and that's bringing us up to speed pretty much. Just things have, and then, a couple of years later, the pandemic hit and things slowed down a little bit, but we just modified how we did things.
Well, I think we just summarized 24 years in 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty good, huh?
So 19 years of doing, what do you call it? Not preventative, but
intervention. So interventive care, like where some kind of if you think about a board certified veterinary behaviorist as being kind of like a psychiatrist, so a medical doctor who treats diseases associated with the brain, or it's pretty much what a veterinary behaviorist does, although they will also see a variety of different, like oftentimes there are basic issues too, that are kind of along the path, like they don't have maybe many cues that we can use or anything like that. So there's training that's involved in kind of working through any kind of identified behavioral disorder in the veterinary field. So, and I would be like a psychiatric nurse, right? And oftentimes I will collaborate with other trainers too, to work with the patients that we have seen and help kind of be the go-between between the veterinarian, the client, and the trainer, and kind of keeping everyone in the loop of what's going on. So the case manager is kind of what we call it in the textbook.
So we're going to talk about, in part 2 of this episode for the listeners, we're going to record 2 episodes of Debbie, and we're going to acknowledge in part 2 that through that 19 years and the nearly 3 decades of work that you've been doing in the veterinary industry and with behaviour, you've obviously seen a lot of great stuff, but also probably a lot of pretty challenging stuff. I'm wondering if there's some cases from those 19 years that really stick out with you and that kind of have taught you profound lessons and insights that you kind of think about regularly and shaped who you have become as a practitioner?
Yeah, good question. Lots of them, So one of them would be just it was kind of going along those lines, like of meeting people where they are. I'll give an example. We had a client that we saw, and she had multiple dogs. She had several shepherds, I think, and then she had this, it was kind of like a Pitty Labrador mix of some sort. And that dog had some aggression it was showing towards people and other dogs, unfamiliar people, unfamiliar dogs, and could be reactive on the leash. And I think there had been a nip or something involved, but there was a lot of fear also, which even regardless of how I was confident is not the word I like, but regardless of how offensive the dog may look, I still find that oftentimes or every time there's a fear underlying that, right? Why are they wanting to make something go away? It's because they're concerned for their own safety. So they're working to push that thing away. But this dog was being walked on a pinch collar. All the dogs were. And so when we discussed it, we basically talked about, for this specific dog, let's see if we can transition to something else, because the associations that might be made are, I see a person or a dog and I lunge to bark or something like that, and then I feel this unpleasant feeling around my neck, and I associate that with the actual stimulus that's there. So what can happen is, like if we just said, let's not use this, let's use this instead, this is causing some of the problem, we probably would not have had a good conversation. If we also had said, by the way, all your other dogs that don't have a problem, bad on you, let's get them off those pinch collars as well. We did not do that. We just gave her an alternative for this other dog. And what was interesting is a couple weeks later, she updated me and said, dog's doing so much better. In fact, I've taken my other dogs off their pinch collars now because I don't really need it. Like I have these other tools that I can use that aren't going to create problems. And we had not suggested it. We were just, very mindful of this specific dog is having an issue. So let's address it there. Yeah. So that was just being really mindful and trying not to have the client shut down was really important. Not that I've done it perfectly throughout the years. I mean, I'm sure there are times that regardless, like people feel judged, and sometimes that's out of our control, that they come with that baggage maybe, but sometimes there's little things that we do, whether we glance away or cross our arms, so there's body language indicators that can tell them that, hey, we're not accepting of something they're telling us. And so being more mindful of that is a work in progress, because it can be hard to hear things that clients are sharing with us. And if we're not receptive or open, then they're less likely to share. So that can be a really eye-opening one. I would also say, so for me, some of the most rewarding clients I have had are those ones that we've had for like over a decade, like you're with them, they stick with you and you see them routinely and you help them throughout the life of their pet, and you build a special relationships with those clients as well. So we have a client currently that used to live in Austin, Texas, which is where I am, but now lives in Houston, which is about 3.5 hours away. And she still comes twice a year for us to see the dog because she trusts us. And it is a challenging situation. One of probably the more difficult cases that I have ever seen. But the bond I have with that client and also with the dog is so strong, and we'll be there for her throughout. So it's really nice building those special relationships with clients over the years. In fact, some clients have become really good friends that I go spend time with, Yeah.
So both of those stories from your journey have been leaning towards the human side of your role. Is that so? When you think back, are you more touched, more influenced, more shaped by working with the human learners?
Yeah. So I would say, I just the nature of the work that I do, I often don't have the luxury to do the hands-on training with the animal because that's not comfortable for that animal, And so I'm often coaching the clients on the method so that they can apply it. And I don't necessarily, I found out early on, maybe a decade in, not early on. I found out mid-career that if I became the sole focus for the dog, it became challenging for the dog to focus on their pet owner if I was trying to transfer skills to them. And it depends on your business model. Like some people actually do want you to just come in and train their dog and then transfer the skills to them. My model has always been like, I'm there with the client teaching them about it. And like oftentimes I would practice it with their dog and then have them do it. But the problem was the dog started to learn that like I was all about treats. Like I didn't have to give the dog a bath. I didn't have to trim its nails. I didn't have to, do any of those things. I wasn't living with the dog. So when they saw Debbie, they were like, oh, it's Debbie, it's a treat lady, and we're going to have a great time and it's going to be really fun. And so they would get highly focused on me. And then when I would try to turn it over to the owners, even if they had great treats and stuff, there were some challenges. And so I tried to back away from that a little bit more and let the owners become the primary giver of good things in those situations and coaching them as opposed to me doing it all. So I would say that's probably why as my career advanced, I felt like those relationships with the clients really is what became stronger. And when I worked with my own dogs, though, so I had Jasmine was my Malinois that I did agility and rally with. She was such an amazing dog. And she was, I called her a mini Mal because she was only 39 pounds. So she was quite small for a Malinois and very agile and just really focused and fun to work with and not over the top too much, like for a Malinois. But the training with her and the bond that I developed with her doing kind of rally, obedience, and agility with her was something I hadn't felt with a dog before.
Amazing. Really, really interesting. I've got a million questions about everything you've just said, but I've only got an hour, so I'm not going to ask. Sorry, audience. I'm interested to hear about and something that I'm selecting from what we could talk about today that I think would be interesting for our listeners is about your journey with the Puppy Start Right book and program. Can you tell us a little bit about that segment of your journey?
Yeah. Well, the book came about because Dr. Ken Martin and I were creating handouts or we were suggesting books to people. And we'd say, okay, we'll read this book, but not this chapter, because there might be something about dominance in there or something like that. And so we're like, why don't we just write our own book? Instead of having all these handouts that we're creating for people, we'll just create our own book and use it with our clients. So even though it says Puppies Start Right, we use it with all age dogs. It is an appropriate book for all age dogs. But, there's that early part about getting started with socialization and experiences. And that is, and most people are looking for a book for a puppy. So that's probably why the title came in that way. But so that the need really stemmed from that. We had used the Ultimate Puppy Toolkit and then it went away, like it was no longer available. So that really sparked our interest in, well, maybe we'll write our own book. And so that's what we did. And then naturally from there, because I started my training and animal behavior career teaching puppy classes and saw what a profound impact they had. Like I had clients that they would come to my puppy class with their young puppy at our vet hospital. And then when it was time for their dog to be spayed or neutered, they would ask which day I was the surgery technician because they wanted their dog to be cared for, nursed. They wanted me to be their dog's nurse during that time. They didn't care which veterinarian was doing the surgery. They wanted their dog to know the person that was handling them and prepping them for surgery and recovering them in a familiar face, right? So those relationships was really cool in general practice. So because of that, and just seeing the impact it had on the dogs coming into our practice, if they had gone through a puppy program, because our puppy program really emphasized like going into the exam room and getting up on the exam table and getting lots of treats and having an otoscope or ear, having their ears looked at or touched. Like, so it taught owners how to work on those things, and it gave the puppies great experiences in the vet hospital when they weren't actually needing to be examined or vaccinated. So these dogs usually were much easier for us to do care on as they grew up because they had had these positive experiences. And so I wanted more vet hospitals to be doing that. I also saw the profound impact it had on Snickers and I in our journey together in 1992, 1993. So I developed just a packet that I could go to vet hospitals and teach them. They would hire me and I would teach them, give them a full curriculum. And I was doing that, like traveling around to a couple of different hospitals and doing that. But it was very time consuming. So once the book was picked up by Karen Pryor Academy and Sunshine Books and, clickertraining.com, they're all kind of all one thing. We talked about, could we make it into a course? And besides the dog trainer professional program, Karen, there was Michelle Pouliot had her, freestyle course with them, but Puppy Start Right, I think, was the next course then that was launched by Karen Pryor Academy. So it took about a year to write it and record everything that we had for it, but it provides a full curriculum for someone who wants to teach a puppy class, whether it's in a veterinary hospital or a training facility. It doesn't matter. And then also I've adapted it for, like, if you're just doing private lessons, I've done that. I've used the same kind of formatting for doing private sessions with people if for some reason their dog is unable or they're unable to attend a group class setting.
And that course now, is that just self-learning when you enroll in it?
Yeah, so it is an online course through Karen Pryor Academy, and you can sign up anytime and you get there's lessons that you go through. There's videos that supplement that. And then there's also a full curriculum that is provided for you to teach at the end. So, and it goes through the curriculum and we break, me being the preschool teacher, I broke it down into 5 or 10 minute increments of what you're teaching during the 1 hour session, and really kind of modifying it to keep the learner's attention and the puppy's attention. So we're not just talking. And it's not a free for all. Like, ideally, I do like young puppies. So we're talking in Puppy Start Right, we're talking about puppies that are actually in their socialization period. So the oldest a puppy can be when they start that class is 12 weeks. And so, because I want them done by the time they're 16 weeks of age, which is really pushing it. They're probably coming to a very close of their socialization period at that point, but there's variability between breeds and individuals too. So, but I do like to, if it's appropriate, the dogs are compatible. I do like to have some short interaction sessions with the different breeds at that young age, just so that they can learn that, a French bulldog is a dog, right? So, I mean, that looks so different and sounds so different to a beagle who encounters a French bulldog may not understand the communication that's happening. And so if they can do that with a young puppy, it's often, just like with kids, children need children to interact with their peers. Being around only adults, there are things that they will miss out on. So during this window of opportunity, we want to try to provide some positive experiences with a variety of different breeds of puppies that are all in the same age set, so that they're more likely to be compatible and less likely to have any conflict or agonistic interactions with each other. Doesn't mean that there won't be. And that's why I say, if it's appropriate, if, the personalities are right, obviously, if there's huge size variations, that doesn't work either. Like if you've got a little itty bitty Chihuahua or a Yorkie and you've got a Great Dane puppy and they're both 12 weeks old, that might not be safe. It might be. Actually, I remember in one of my puppy classes, the big bull mastiff that liked hanging out with the little puppies because he didn't like the big dogs that were running around too much. So he hung out with all the little dogs and they played around him, and it worked out well because of his energy level was different. But yeah, it could be a challenge, knowing how to work play in and making it appropriate. So it's not a free for all. So maybe once or twice during the class, they get about 3 to 5 minutes of some well supervised interactions with the other dogs. And you point out things like their body language and what they're trying to communicate with each other so that the owners are learning about that as well, and kind of understanding their dog's communication and if they're comfortable or uncomfortable, and then how to redirect them if they're feeling like they might be uncomfortable, and doing it in a way that is not damaging to the relationship with the other dogs or with their person.
Well, there's a couple more things I want to talk about, but firstly, I just want to say congratulations. You have done cool things, and you've had an amazing career. And there's different segments of our podcast audience, Debbie. There's going to be those who are like just want to geek out on training and might be kind of beginner to intermediate and wanting to gain ideas. But there's those who have aspirations. They would love to write a book and be called up by Karen Pryor, or not Karen Pryor, Ken Ramirez now. You'd be like, hey, do you want to add your catalog to Karen Pryor? I mean, what did that feel like to get that recognition and acknowledgement from someone as esteemed in that industry as Karen Pryor?
Yeah, I know. So just looking back at spending time with Karen too, and learning from her over the years, and gosh, I miss seeing her face at the conferences and stuff, and her insights were always so good. But yeah, it was just really just kind of surreal, like how did I get to be so lucky, right? And I know it's not like, I shouldn't discount my hard work and all those things, but some of it feels like sometimes like you're just in the right place at the right time. You've got connections. So one of the reasons that I was pulled into Clicker Expo was actually Julie Shaw. So she was a behavior tech at Purdue University, and she was on faculty, and she brought me in as a suggested speaker. And that's, was the opportunity that came out from that. So, that collaboration, that helping each other and helping boost other people up that are coming in the field is important. And I think it's important kind of what you're doing too, like, because you are doing that exact same thing by having this podcast, having different professionals coming on and talking about things, instead of it just being, the Ryan Cartledge show and it's all about you and what you have to say. You're wanting other people's perspectives. And I think that that's a big part of opportunities for young professionals in the field, as well as, the continuing education. I would say my push to always learn more has opened up opportunities, and not everyone is able to do that. Like, I mean, I would say financially, things were really tight for a long time. I mean, like starting a new business, working as a veterinary technician, you do not make a lot of money. Okay. I'm just going to tell you right now, like when I was at Purdue University, and I know this was back in, it was 2003. So 20 years ago. But I was only making just under $30,000 a year, which is not very much in the United States. Like, it's not really enough to live on by yourself. And technician salaries are still fairly low for the skill set that they have, especially like if it's a licensed technician that has gone to school and can anesthetize animals and draw blood and put in IV catheters and do all these things. It is quite amazing how little they are still paid. But that is the challenge of veterinary care, like making it affordable for the clients, and being able to pay your staff appropriately can be challenging.
Well, I mean, talking about earlier, that understanding that a good guide offers their clients, I think there's pretty many listeners of this show who are in that position right now. So it's inspiring for them to listen to you and see what the long results of hard work and dedication.
Yeah. And sacrifices. I mean, there were sacrifices that had to be made in order to pay for continuing education. So for veterinary technicians, the reason I was able to take the Karen Pryor Academy dog training professional program was that Julie Shaw started a scholarship for veterinary technicians that were interested in pursuing a specialty in behavior. And it helped pay for almost, it was half of the course. So it was, became a 50% discount basically because there was a scholarship available. And we still continue that to this day. We offer 3 scholarships a year to veterinary technicians that are working towards a specialty in animal behavior who want to take the dog trainer professional program because it oftentimes is not something that they would be able to afford otherwise. And it's still a sacrifice at half the price. So, yeah.
Where do people find out about that scholarship? I didn't know about that.
Oh, so it's on the Karen Pryor Academy website under their dog trainer professional program. There's like financing and scholarship offers. It's called the Faith Scholarship, and it is based after Julie Shaw's service dog for her son. The dog's name was Faith, and that's how it got started. Was helping, really trying to help veterinary technicians who wanted to learn more about training and pursue a career in animal behavior, give them those skills. Because part of being a veterinary technician in behavior is you have to understand how animals learn and how to train them, and also how to work with people and coach them as well, which the program does do a good job on all of those fronts.
So considering the sacrifices and the financial considerations that anyone who might be considering that line of work has to consider. And reflecting on your bio, when you said you're one of only 30 veterinary technician specialists in behaviour, and then also thinking about Fair Free and these other opportunities for people to upskill themselves in the area of behaviour. Can you maybe just share a little bit for anyone listening who's in that space? What does veterinary technician specialist in behaviour mean? What does that entail? What are some career paths or considerations that people need to make if they're thinking about exploring these opportunities?
Yeah, great question. So it is a 3 to 5 year commitment of specializing in behavior before you could even be eligible to apply to take the examination. So, within the veterinary field, they've had specialties for veterinarians. They also have quite a few specialties for technicians. And the behavior one, you can find out all the details at avbt.net, and that's the Academy of Veterinary Behavior Technicians.net. So it's just avbt.net, and we can probably put a link in the show notes or something at the end for that. But it is having so many hours of prevention and intervention, and then also, so it does require, as a technician, our role as a technician is to be working under a veterinarian. And so if we're working as a licensed technician, we do have to have like an overseeing veterinarian on the case. But then we can do all the like cool stuff, like teach about the behavior modification and how to train these behaviors and help problem solve this treatment plan that's being given to the client and help them apply it to their household and their specific unique situations. And so working doesn't mean you have to work at a vet hospital. It's just that the animal, in my mind, the animal should be seen by the veterinarian and have a veterinary diagnosis. In the States, at least, as a licensed technician, if I start saying things like, well, your dog suffers from some kind of separation distress or separation anxiety, that actually in the state of Texas could be perceived as practicing veterinary medicine because I'm giving a medical diagnosis, which includes mental health in the state of Texas. And so I could lose my license over something like that. And if I say like your dog's got this and these are the treatment recommendations for it as well, even if I don't say that, if I don't try to diagnose it, but I provide treatment recommendations for mental health disorder, that could be considered practicing veterinary medicine. So as a technician, I have to really be careful about the line that I walk, and make sure that I am teaming up with the veterinarian, because there are lots of things that could be missed if we're not careful. And I hear everyone out there, not all vets know what to look for. And that is true. Not all vets are up to speed about animal behavior, and sometimes they give really poor advice. And yes, I know, but let's meet them where they are and help educate them as well, if they're open to it. And certainly, because of that kind of stipulation, a technician who's working towards a specialty is going to have to kind of think about linking up in some way with veterinary hospitals, whether they're doing their own practice and seeing cases that are being referred to them by a veterinarian, and then they're also collaborating with that veterinarian. But you can also, we see plenty of people who get their specialty. They come from a general practice, so they have a veterinarian that is interested in behavior, that is seeing some cases. A lot of their hours can be preventive things like puppy classes, kitten classes, puppy well visits, adolescent well visits. These are things that don't require veterinary intervention or a diagnosis. So I think 3/4 of their hours actually can come from prevention type things. So that does give them a quite wide variety of ways to get enough hours. And then they also have other requirements, like they have to write some case reports. They have to have a case log. They have to have so much continuing education in animal behavior. And then they apply, they send their application in for our board to review, and they either are accepted to sit for the exam, or we give them points on things that they need to build on before then. There's also, in the application process, there are videos that they have to submit of actually working with clients and animals and showing their skill set. So they will have to submit that as part of the application process. And then if they are accepted to sit for the examination, it's a full day exam, part essay, part multiple choice.
Well, thanks so much for sharing all of that, Debbie, and sharing everything so far. We love hearing about people's behavioural odysseys, as we like to call them. I could keep asking questions. We didn't even talk about Fair Free yet in much detail, but we're running out of time. Before we do that, I would love for you to share with the listeners of this show what you're up to now. What are you doing in 2024? What is currently keeping you busy?
Yeah, so the odyssey still continues, and different chapters in my life are starting and continuing. I'm still a subject matter expert for Fear Free and Fear Free Happy Homes, which I enjoy doing and consulting with them on kind of content, making sure that it's in line with their principles as well as best practices for behavior. And then along with that, been in collaboration with Dr. Kenneth Martin writing a canine and feline veterinary behavior program for Fear Free for actually the past 5 years. And it should be launching, some of it will launch at the end of this year, and then the full program will be launching over the next year as well. And so this will be for veterinarians and trainers to learn more about clinical animal behavior from the veterinary side. It is very much a graduate level course. And if you know anything about Fear Free, most of their courses are just a couple modules long. This one's going to be like 45 modules. It should probably take anywhere from 7 to 12 months for you to complete. And it is going to be something that will help veterinarians at least have some comfort level with treating or recognizing behavior challenges in dogs and cats. And then also it will help trainers who are interested in the veterinary aspect of animal behavior to kind of collaborate with these veterinarians so that they can all kind of be speaking the same language, so to speak, and on the same page. They have the same education. The course will be the exact same for whether you're a veterinary technician, a veterinarian, or a trainer. And so that is something I'm very excited about, because I really like educating getting education out to people, people who want that information. So that's coming out, putting the final touches on it, as well as continuing to write a little bit more content for it. And then I also started working with a new startup company that is trying to make behavior more accessible well, this is only in the United States right now. It may venture out to other countries, but it's called Ease Pet Vet, and you can find them at easepetvet.com. But the referring veterinarian can refer their client to Ease, and then the client can purchase a treatment plan that has been written by board-certified veterinary behaviorists, and it also has videos to supplement it. So it's an online option that they can get access to immediately at an affordable price. The problem, oftentimes, at least what we're still seeing in the United States, is that we have a lot of dogs and cats that need help, but they might be referred to a specialist, but there's a 3 to 6 month wait period before they can be seen. And really, in that interim, things can get much worse, or they start doing searches online or getting information that's not conducive to improving their situation. And so this can be a first step in the process of getting them to someone that can help them hands-on. But it may, for some cases, actually treat the whole condition, so for inappropriate elimination in the cat, like that, oftentimes between the medical component and then some tips that can be given, can be treated pretty successfully. And so very excited about that option too. And then I am also starting a new coaching service for pet owners that have a behavior treatment plan from a veterinarian, whether that be from Ease Pet Vet or from the regular vet or from a board certified veterinary behaviorist. And I will do virtual, and if they're local, in-person sessions with them. And it's really about committing to a 2 months of us working twice a week together to kind of implement that treatment plan into their life. So I try to break it down into, for the next 3 days, when do you have 5 minutes and 20 treats to do this exercise? And then let's report back how that went in 3 days. We'll see how that went, and we'll expand on it next time we meet based on how things are going. So I'm excited about that, because that gets me to those clients that want kind of that long-term commitment, not just the quick one appointment, fix my dog, doc type thing. It's more the ones that want to really implement the behavior modification plan and need some assistance in doing that to help keep them motivated and feel like they're not making errors, because oftentimes follow-ups maybe will be a month or 2 months or even 3 months out. And so being able to walk them through that plan slowly, I think we'll have better success.
Well, firstly, I'm thinking, do you live in some parallel universe where you have more than 24 hours in a day? Because you're doing a lot.
It sounds like a lot, but I do break up so what's nice is, I talk about, I have 4 different jobs, basically. I work with clients. I do public speaking. I do writing, and I do review of content for Fear Free or some other companies too as well. So I get a balance of things. It's not like I'm going to have 20 active clients at a time. I will have a max of 4 clients that I'm working with at a time. If I'm meeting with them twice a week, that's already 8 appointments. That's the max, right? Because I'm only going to commit a couple of days to that, because there are other things that are on the to-do list, as well as time for me. and that is important as well. And it's a work in progress, but it's still, I feel like I have a good routine of self-care and doing some of the things that I really love that energize me and keep me fueled.
Well, beautiful. I'd love to do a whole conversation just about this, but I'd like to also say that the, easepetvet.com, that sounds like a really valuable and needed globally.
It will be global at some point, I promise. I think it's going to do well. Yeah.
We will link to all of this in the show notes. And unfortunately, we're going to wrap up part 1 here. Debbie, this has been So much fun. So from myself and on behalf of everyone listening, we really appreciate you hanging out with us for part 1. We've got more Debbie coming up, which I'm excited about.
Thanks, Ryan.
And thank you so much for listening as well. This is your host, Ryan Cartledge, signing off from this episode of the Animal Training Academy podcast show. We hope today's conversation inspired you and equipped you with new tools for your trainer's toolbox. Remember, every challenge in training is an opportunity to learn and sharpen your animal training geekery. Embrace the rough patches, learn from them, and keep improving. And don't forget, the path to growing your skills and expanding your knowledge continues beyond this episode. Visit www.atamember.com to join our supportive membership, where you will find a community of trainers just like you. Together, we're making a huge positive difference in the lives of animal and human learners worldwide. Until next time, keep honing your skills, stay awesome, and remember, every interaction with an animal or human learner is your opportunity to create ripples. We're here cheering you on every step of the way. See you at the next episode.